might not have realised, but once upon a time the British had a camera making industry. Before the Second World War, this industry was quite strong, but never quite seemed to produce the quality of German cameras. And during the war, there was a little bit of a problem that the British companies could not produce a good camera. And a lot of the cameras used during the Second World War by the British forces were Zeiss Super Icontas. And there was a big push to try to make a similar camera, and Ensign did eventually come up with the River camera. But after the war, cameras were in very short supply. There was a high demand but short supply, and the camera manufacturing industry did strive to produce new cameras. And one of these cameras after the war to go onto the market in 1952 was this rather nice camera. This is an Ensign 820 Selfix. They became a range of these 820 cameras. This was the most basic. Then there was one with a rangefinder, and there's a special also with a cupboard rangefinder, which goes for a lot of money. This camera itself goes for about £50 to £140, and when it came out in 1952 it was considered to be a very high quality camera. It is a rather basic camera in today's term, in that there is no rangefinder, there's no meter, but there's a fast 3.8 Ross Express lens on it. It takes 6:9. Well, you have a choice of film sizes. Let me check there's no film in here, because what is quite ingenious, you should see here this lovely large envelope which is 6:9, so you get a really large negative, a very high quality negative. But you have got a little device that there's there's flaps which come over and form a, here you should be able to see we have converted the 6:9 camera into a 6:6. However, you'll be thinking, but the lens is the same, and it is. It's a 105 lens. So by converting it to 6:6, we have almost become slightly telephoto, more of a portrait camera. But if you have 6:6, you can now get 12 photographs on your film instead of 8. To use the camera, we simply put a film in here and wind on until you will notice we have two red windows here, one labelled 12 and one labelled 8. So if we didn't have our masks in, we would pour our 12 over and we would have the 8. One of the slight weaknesses with this camera is that I have found these little red windows can easily unstick. I have taken the back plate off and actually put these windows back on. That seems to be the most common error with them. Otherwise, they seem to work remarkably well. The shutter is, you have to forward the film in order for the shutter to be, you have a nice click there. The shutter speeds are not the greatest range. We have 1 second to 1/250th of a second, and we have to manually set our shutter. So in order to use the camera, you have to focus, you have to take a light reading or use the Sunny 16 rule, because you have an aperture here, and it's interesting there's a little dot by the 16, and our shutter speeds are here. I'm just going to try it on 1 second. That is the speed that often, yeah, it's slightly sticking on the 1 second, where the 50th of a second, let's try 50th of a second. That's very smooth, the 50th of a second. When we consider that this camera is now 68 years old and it looks almost as sharp as it did when it was new, that I've taken a film on here, which the photos are on the end of this video here, and I was pleased with the result. It's slightly soft, but when you compare it to a modern camera, that softness can be quite endearing. I had a good range of tones, it was reliable, and I was, as I said, pleased with the results. You might not want to use one as your everyday camera, but as a piece of history and as something that gives a slightly different result. In a different result, I mean, I think it's a slightly softer image, it's a slightly gentler image, and sometimes you want that. When I was walking around my local area, looking at some of the old buildings, looking at the architecture, somehow the camera seemed to fit in well. You never know, you might even find one cheaply, or you might find a relative with one. They are a moderately common camera, they do come on the market. As I said, the ones that go for the most money are the special Auto 820s. There's a whole range of other Ensign cameras. They were produced in London, and it's a fascinating history if you want to investigate further. They are good fun. If you find one, why not try a film in an old English camera? Thank you for watching. Bye for now.